come back when they're older with more money and spend it here. So, you know, we need to put, I believe, we need to actually have more areas, and it needs to be more user pays. When I was in the Sunshine Coast last year, there were parking areas in the, you know, green parks with parking areas there with electricity boxes that you put money in on the sides of the parks. So they were actually encouraging people to hook up onto the power boxes and use the facilities there. Coin-operated toilets, coin-operated showers. It needs to be funded and paid for, but we're just going about it in that awful to hell with everyone kind of a way, in a redneck talkback kind of a way, which I think is just the wrong way to do it.
All right. And one more thing I want to squeeze in. We don't always have all the facts when we discuss stories, and we try and point that out regularly. Perhaps the facts presented in this Otago Daily Times reportage will suffice, because this issue seems fairly simple. It's a very interesting one and quite a regular one. The question is what Ali and Selwyn would decide if making this decision. On the Taieri Plains, a developer is to fight to be allowed to cut down a big oak tree. A council planner has recommended his resource consent application be denied in King Street, Mosgiel, number 27. And this tree is 25 metres high. It's healthy. It is said to make a significant contribution to the amenity of the area. But that amenity value, says developer Craig Horn, is outweighed by the tree's canopy, shading the existing house, affecting the comfort of its occupants. And on Google Street View, it would appear the tree blocks the afternoon sun and shades the house. So, on one hand, you can't cut down a lovely tree that everyone can see. On the other, the case for felling is compelling. What would you decide?
Well, I think Ali's got her feet planted on the mainland, is probably more, equipped to answer this one. How's that for passing the buck? But in general, without having seen the tree, it seems to me that the tree actually has been there a long time, and one would presume before the developer got interested in the actual land. So therefore, very little sympathy for the developers.
What if you were living in the house and the tree blocked?
Well, that's a different story. We had a tree that was an ash tree that had a great big limb right over the roof, and we couldn't cut that down. And that to me was insane. That was stupid, because those trees can split limbs very easily, but we couldn't cut that down because it was over 12 inches or whatever it was at the time. So I think we've got to be practical and common sense on such things. But when some people would say, not getting the sunlight through, is that a good enough reason? I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
I think it is, actually, and I think that the amenity is really important, and actually removing trees is a big issue in Christchurch at the moment as our cycleways go in and a lot of trees are under threat. 25 metres is immense, so why couldn't there be a conversation around having the tree removed, and who pays for that? I don't think that the community and the ratepayers should be paying for that. Maybe it should be a 50-50, I don't know. Have the tree removed, but look at putting a mature tree in that's going to be more suitable and still help the amenity in the area. Isn't there a way that you could probably meet halfway with it?
All right. Good thoughts on that. A couple of parting thoughts. More tributes today for two notable New Zealanders. Dr. Ranganui Walker's funeral was this morning at the Orake Marae on the final day of his tangi. And Ngāti Nahere Hapu Chairman Te Kahotu Maxwell said, Dr. Walker dedicated his life to making New Zealand a place where Pakeha and Maori both belonged. That is a neat way of putting it. That's one of the great noble pursuits if you devote your life to that, isn't it?
I think thinking back, Dr. Walker's work was an introduction for so many, myself included, on seeing this country through the eyes of Māori and at different times.
Yeah, in a calm way too, in a kind of a non-confrontational way, which I think is important.
We're not going to have time for our Martin Crowe tribute, but more has emerged on how much work he did on himself as a man, not just as a cricket player. And it does seem unfair that a bloke who spent so much time making himself into such a good human being should pass away so young, doesn't it?
Yeah, perfectly said, Jim.
Yeah, well said.
All right. Thank you both for coming on the panel today. Ali Jones, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Jim.
Same with you, Selwyn Manning. Thank you for your company. Thanks, everybody. Have a lovely weekend if you've got the weekend off. And shortly, Checkpoint with John Campbell.
Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm John Campbell, and on behalf of the Checkpoint team, thank you for joining us. Tonight, breaking news, a shipment of 40 kilos of methamphetamine. Customs join us immediately after the news to tell us all about it. Who's backing Donald Trump and why? Police respond to accusations they've been racist against African people in Auckland. A final farewell to Ranginui Walker. AFCO guilty of breaching health and safety law. We're joined by the young man who danced with his great-grandma and made something magic. And if you left your goats in Blackball, they'd like you to come and claim them. But first, here's Leilani Mamoisia with RNZ News.
Kia ora, good evening. Methamphetamine with a street value the police put at $40 million has been found hidden inside marble tabletops sent from China. Customs and the police made the find after a joint operation in which they also seized cash and luxury cars. Kate Pereira Garcia reports.
The 40 kilograms of methamphetamine, also known as P, was found in a shipment of tea tray tables. The police also found an additional $1 million worth of methamphetamine at an Auckland address. They have seized $1 million in cash and a variety of luxury cars, including a Ferrari and a Lamborghini. Customs Investigations Manager Maurice O'Brien says this was a sophisticated concealment. 4 men have been arrested and have appeared in court on charges relating to the importation and supply of methamphetamine and on conspiracy charges. This is Kate Pereira Garcia.
The meat company AFCO says WorkSafe has made it a scapegoat for an accident in which a cleaner was impaled in the head by a meat hook. Jason Matahiki was working at the company's Rangiuru works in August 2014 when a hook on a moving chain went through his head behind the left ear. Our employment reporter Max Toll has more.
WorkSafe has now successfully prosecuted AFCO in the Tauranga District Court on a charge that carries a maximum fine of $250,000. Judge Peter Rolo found AFCO's own rules required the hooks to be stationary during cleaning, but there were no random checks on health and safety compliance. AFCO says WorkSafe believes it has to blame someone for every accident. It says it has a good safety record and the accident was the first on the chain processor after many years of operation. The company says the accident involved a person in a restricted area despite training and signs. Sentencing was originally set down for this week but has been delayed a month. This is Max Toll.
A senior police officer says young Africans who have accused officers in Auckland of racism and brutality against them should make a complaint. The allegations have been detailed in a study by an AUT researcher who says she spoke to 80 African people aged between 16 and 31. Several of them said they had been unfairly targeted by the police. The police deputy chief executive of Māori, Pacific and Ethnic Services, Wally Homaha, is questioning the quality of the research, and he says he would like to see the researcher front up with the evidence. Mr. Homaha says he would be gobsmacked if police used some of the language they're accused of, but if it's true, then those affected should make a complaint so it can be investigated. The Northland iwi leader, Sonny Tau, has had his case for shooting kereru transferred to Invercargill. The former chair of the country's largest iwi, Te Runanga a Iwi o Ngāpuhi, appeared briefly at the Auckland District Court today. His lawyer, John Munro, asked for the case to be sent back down south. Sonny Tau has admitted charges of shooting 5 endangered kereru that were found in his luggage. According to court documents seen by RNZ News, he had visited family in Invercargill in June. Before flying to his home in Northland, he was searched by a Conservation Department officer who found the frozen kereru along with a .22 calibre rifle. Mr. Tau told the authorities the birds were for kaumātua. He also faces another charge of conspiring to pervert the course of justice, which is connected to the case. 2 teachers found guilty of serious misconduct over their relationship with a 13-year-old girl who later died can now be named. They are Samuel Back and Angela Meffam of Gisborne. Our education correspondent John Gerritsen reports.
The Education Council's disciplinary tribunal deregistered Mr Back, who is 42, and censured Miss Meffin, his 33-year-old partner, 2 weeks ago. It said it was not convinced by arguments for suppression of their names and those of the schools they worked at, but allowed them time to appeal, which has now lapsed. The case centred on Mr Back's intense relationship with the girl, who he taught while she was in Year 8 at Gisborne Intermediate School in 2013. The tribunal said he had breached the most elementary obligation owed by teachers to students, to do everything in his power to ensure the safety of his student. The name of the girl and her family are permanently suppressed. This is John Gerritsen.
The Crown has finished calling its witnesses in Russell Tully's murder trial. The 49-year-old is charged with shooting Peggy Noble and Lee Cleveland at the Ashburton Work and Income Office in 2014. He's also charged with the attempted murders of 2 of their colleagues. The Crown called about 70 witnesses. Justice Cameron Mander told the jury closing addresses will be given on Monday. And to sports now, it's do or die for the Breakers basketballers in tonight's second game of their NBL Grand Final series against the Perth Wildcats at the North Shore Events Centre. The Breakers lost the opening match in Perth, and defeat tonight would end their chances of defending their title. The Olympic rowing champion Mahe Drysdale says there was no readjustment period with coach Dick Tonks in the wake of Tonks falling out with Rowing New Zealand late last year. The matter has been resolved, but Drysdale, who was today named as part of a 31-strong New Zealand rowing squad for the Rio Olympics, says he was apprehensive when he resumed training.
Showing up the first day, there's a little bit of how's this going to play out, and it was Dick's usual into the megaphone. All right, 20k, and you're sort of like, all right, it's back to normal, and off you go.
Mahe Drysdale. In Super Rugby, the Blues are chasing their second straight win when they take on the winless Crusaders in Christchurch tonight. The game kicks off at 7:30. Meanwhile, fullback Nehe Milner-Skudder will miss the Hurricanes match against the champion Highlanders in Dunedin tomorrow due to a bruised leg. And Tom Walsh defended his national shot put title and shattered his own New Zealand resident record in Dunedin this afternoon, outgunning rival Jacko Gill, who came second. And the New Zealand women's hockey team have drawn the 6th test against hosts Argentina 2-2 to claim an overall series win. And that's the news.
Tonight on Night, celebrating the music of Dwayne Skydog Allman. Country life spins a few yards, literally. Melody Thomas presents a guide to the Splore Music Festival down the road from Auckland. Helene Elliott brings the sport, US sport, which means gridiron, basketball, baseball, and we have a Sonic Tonic dedicated to the songs and sound bites of Waste on Nights with me, Brian Crump. It's in the can after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
And the Met Service weather to midnight tomorrow, Northland and Auckland. A shower or 2 in the east coast tomorrow afternoon. A shower or 2 in the east tomorrow afternoon. Coromandel Peninsula and Bay of Plenty's mostly fine. Isolated showers inland this afternoon and evening. From Waikato to Wellington, including Taihape and Taupo. Fine apart from areas of morning and evening cloud. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, Wairarapa, also Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury. Fine with high cloud at times over the South Island. Buller is cloudy at times, mainly morning and night. Westland's cloud turning to rain south of the glaciers tonight. Fiordland, there's thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. Otago and Southland, scattered rain for a time tomorrow. And the Chatham Islands is cloudy tonight and sunny breaks tomorrow. And I'll be back with news headlines at 5:30. It's 5:09.
Thank you very much indeed, Leilani. We're going to start tonight with this breaking news of a methamphetamine bust valued somewhere approaching $40 million. Customs say the operation began when they discovered around 40 kilos of meth hidden inside some tabletops in a shipment sent from China. 4 men were arrested and appeared in court yesterday on charges related to the importation of methamphetamine, its supply and conspiracy. And there's more. Police have seized more than $1 million in cash and luxury cars, and we understand some more meth too. Customs Investigation Manager Maurice O'Brien is on the line. Welcome, Maurice. How did you find this? Maurice, are you there?
I am here, John.
Good. Yeah, well, probably not as good as you. This is a really great result for Customs. How did you find it?
It started with the consignment being identified as a risk, and then using obviously a lot of tools that we have, We found 40 kgs in 26 tables. So there was 1 kg inside these. I describe them as marble tea tables from China.
And Maurice, when you say you identified them as a risk, was this just somebody who was kind of alert to something unusual about the shipment, or did you receive some intelligence about the shipment prior to its arrival?
We have a sort of a layered risk assessment process, so obviously intelligence is a key part in that, but it's just part of our normal process, to be fair. So we rely on indicators, and if they're there, we identify them as a risk, and as a consequence, we'll examine them.
So the people importing this, were you alert to their criminality, or did you receive a tip-off from China, or was it simply prima facie that the shipment looked dodgy?
Exactly that. We found it, and then we joined forces with Ofcans to obviously share our resources, and as a consequence identified the people involved, which is the good thing about it, because not only do you want the goods, obviously, you want those involved, which sort of dismantles or disrupts the syndicate.
Ain't that the truth? So you've got the drugs, you've got 40 kilos of methamphetamine, but obviously, as you say, you still want the people who are hoping it's arriving for them. So how do you get them? What happens next?
Well, we call that investigative technique.
Well, it works.
I think the important thing is not only that, we also located an additional 1 kg, over $1 million in cash, as well as significant assets.
Yeah, I see the assets include a Ferrari, Lamborghini, BMW, Porsche, Mercedes-Benz. Were these cars already in New Zealand, already in Auckland, or were they being imported as well?
No, they were locally sourced.
Okay, so these people, the people that you now allege were importing these drugs, were they already in Auckland living what looks like a conspicuously high life?
Yeah, 2 of them are residents, that's right.
Okay, and these cars belong to the people you accuse of doing the crime?
Some of them, yep.
Okay. When you say they're residents, are they Chinese nationals?
2 of them are New Zealand residents and 2 are foreign nationals.
Okay. Are you now working with Chinese authorities to find the source of the shipment?
Yeah, our strategy essentially is to look at the whole supply chain, so that's international at the border and also domestic, and together with Ofcans, that's how we operate. So we do have offshore partnerships going on to obviously attack that.
Okay, and you had some men in court yesterday?
Appeared in court yesterday, yeah, that's their first hearing.
Okay, remanded in custody?
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Maurice. Customs Investigation Manager Maurice O'Brien. If you just tuned in, this is breaking news. Customs and police have stopped a large shipment of methamphetamine with an estimated street value of $40 million. The joint operation started after Customs intercepted a shipment of tea tables from China and discovered around 40 kg of methamphetamine hidden inside. Maurice was perhaps inevitably being somewhat coy about whether they received intelligence or whether this was eagle-eyed work from a customs officer at the border. But nonetheless, they have 40 kilos of methamphetamine and people in custody. 30 minutes past 5 on Checkpoint. The police have responded to claims of racist treatment of African people in Auckland. African people interviewed for an AUT study. So they've been racially profiled, harassed, and even beaten by the police. One master's student says everyone in the African community has a story about being racially profiled by police. But the Deputy Chief Executive, Māori, Pacific and Ethnic Services for the police, Wale Homaha, says the research just isn't fair.
Oh, look, I'm very concerned about the tone of the research report, and particularly the type of language that's been used in the report. And I'm also concerned that the report wasn't discussed with our District Commander in Auckland, Superintendent Richard Chambers, when he asked to address issues that have now been put out in the public domain, as small as the numbers appear to be.
Okay, so are you rejecting what the report says?
Well, I'd like to understand what the report is saying, and where we've got a report saying that people have said this, have said that, and we've asked for comment, just tell us, okay, so what's the evidence that you're going to provide us? if those comments have been made, then let us investigate them. But I think it's surprising to us that the words that have been used in that way are certainly a surprise to any of us. And I would, in this day and age, I would like to think that the New Zealand police has moved significantly past those sorts of issues many years ago.
Absolutely, and I'm sure everyone would like to think that. Does that mean it's not happening? Does that mean, for example, there's not some kind of visceral racial profiling going on? A number of the young men described the police in cars doing U-turns and coming back and haranguing them regularly, and they say it's simply because of their race.
Well, it's easy to say that, isn't it? But it's not easy to say, well, did I commit an offence, or how did I bring myself to the attention of police? Now, I've been in this position for many, many years and was part of the establishment of the cultural unit at Police National Headquarters way back in 2003, focusing on Māori issues, where I've dealt with the same sort of language way back then, where Māori youth used to say these things, but then never realising that they did bring themselves to the attention of, and the aggression that was shown in the initial phase of contact. And, you know, we've come a long way, John. We've established Māori Pacific Ethnic Services.
Okay, absolutely. Look, that's beyond dispute. But I want to talk specifically here. One young man describes being told to get out of the car, you monkey.
Yes, and again, the language in the report, you know, talks about brutalising before the relationships become more brutalised, dehumanising. And I'm absolutely just gobsmacked by that sort of language in an organisation that I've belonged to for over 30 years now, and have been instrumental in changing part of the culture that was way back in the early days to what it is now. So I'd like to see Camille front up with the evidence to tell me these kids are saying these things.
It's very hard, isn't it? I mean, if you interview a young person about something that happened weeks ago, and they confide in you, that's really, you know, as a police officer, it's hard to produce evidence that occurred. And what are they meant to do? Wander around with phones constantly on record? How can they persuade you it occurred?
Well, look, if she came and sat down and was able to say, look, we've taken this complaint seriously, we have a person who was concerned, just as we as police would be concerned if names were used in a derogatory manner, we would like to know how that's come about.
So if it's happened, you would regard it as totally inappropriate?
Oh, absolutely. It would be inappropriate. But at this point in time, I have to dispute what the research is saying because we've got no evidence that's been put before us. And again, if a complaint has been made around that language, there's opportunities through the Human Rights Commission. There's a police website that people can put that complaint upon. We've got the IPCA. There are a number of outlets in this day and age where people can make legitimate complaints against the police for any issue.
It's Superintendent Wally Homaha. The time on Checkpoint is 18 minutes past 5. A cleaner tried to apologise for being an inconvenience while suspended in mid-air by a hook which had impaled in his head. The judge has found the meat company AFCO guilty of breaching health and safety law and says it ignored its own safety rules in the lead up to the accident at its Rangiuru works in August 2014. Our employment reporter Max Toll has got the Tauranga District Court's decision. Max, hello. What exactly happened?
Hi, yes, I have been reading the decision, the very gruesome decision. One night in August 2015, Jason Matahiki was cleaning that plant's meat hooks, the moving meat hooks, which move on a chain. He was caught by surprise and one of the hooks pierced his head behind his left ear, emerging directly by his left eye. And because he was standing on an elevated platform at the time, he was actually suspended in midair and carried a short distance dangling by that hook. Oh. Luckily, his workmates rushed to him. They grabbed him by the torso and held him up, carrying his weight, and that emergency stop button was pressed. Fire crew and ambulance were naturally called, and after an ordeal which lasted about an hour and a half, he was finally removed from the machine, set down on the ground. The hook was pulled from his head. Thankfully, he suffered no long-term physical damage. However, as the decision says, he did suffer some very serious emotional decision, obviously very understandable, which has meant he's only returned to work very recently.
OK. Who took the case against AFCO, Max?
Well, WorkSafe investigated, as they are wont to do, and eventually, after almost a year of investigating, they laid a charge against AFCO, a charge which Judge Peter Rollo in the Tauranga District Court has now upheld. He says that AFCO's own rules state that those hooks should not be moving during cleaning, and that the company didn't do enough to make sure its workers abided by those rules. In his words, there were some critical company failures at the plant. AFCO's defence was that Mr Matahiki shouldn't have been standing on that elevated platform. It says its rules state quite clearly that that shouldn't be the case. But after hearing lots of evidence from people who work at the plant, the court heard that it had become commonplace at the plant for people to get up on that platform, and that the responsibility should really fall on the company. I should add that the charge itself carries, under the Health and Safety and in Employment Act, it carries a maximum fine of $250,000.
OK, you've spoken to the Meat Workers Union and AFCO?
Yes, it emerged in the case quite extraordinarily that while he was dangling on that hook, Mr Matahiki was apologising to his boss for being an inconvenience. I spoke to Darian Fenton, who was the Meat Worker Union's campaign director, and she says this point illustrates that there's a culture or an attitude at AFCO plants whereby any accident is sort of treated as the worker's fault rather than the company's. And I think, to be fair, AFCO would probably agree with that. They sent me a statement which says it feels like WorkSafe has made them a scapegoat, and it feels that WorkSafe is just looking to blame anyone. It says it has a good safety record, and this accident was the first on that particular chain in many, many years of operation. Tellingly, since that tragic night, the hooks themselves, during cleaning, they no longer move.
Max Toll, our employment reporter. Thank you so much, Max. And we've just got this. In a reserve decision released today, Prepared Produce Limited was fined $196,000, $196,000, for 6 offences in order to pay $57,000 in reparation to 3 victims whose fingers were amputated in a belt slicing machine. The fruit and vegetable processor pleaded guilty to 3 charges under the Health and Safety and Employment Act for failing to take all practicable steps to keep workers safe. They also pleaded guilty to 3 charges of failing to notify WorkSafe New Zealand of an occurrence of serious harm. The 3 incidents occurred over a period of 18 months and all involved amputations. This just to hand, in all 3 occasions, Prepared Produce Limited failed to notify the Workplace Health and Safety Regulator. Instead, WorkSafe only became aware after the Engineering, Printing and Manufacturing Union made a complaint in December 2014. A $196,000 fine, $57,000 in reparations. 23 minutes past 5. Coming up next, hundreds gathered to farewell Dr. Ranginui Walker. We speak to our Māori issues correspondent, Mihinarangi Forbes. And later in the programme, all Jared Stoneman did was film himself dancing with his great-grandmother. But this video has been shared on social media almost 7,000 times. And the reason will become apparent if you see it or even hear Jared talking about it. Jared and his great-granny Katie join us via Skype soon. We'd love to hear from you in any way you choose. Text 2101, email checkpoint@radionz.co.nz, and Facebook and Twitter, Checkpoint RNZ. Wellington Night Shelter is making an urgent plea to ratepayers for extra money to keep the service open. The Wellington Night Shelter service, which provides accommodation for up to 52 homeless men a night, is experiencing record demand as high housing costs spike even further, and it's just missed a crucial funding deadline, meaning its cash reserves will dry up next month if it doesn't receive a top-up fast. Our reporter Ruth Hill has been touring the shelter.
Basically, all of the hostel rooms look like this. They're 2 meters wide and 3-4 meters long. They're fitted out basically with a wardrobe unit, some drawers, and a mattress. The guys up here can stay for up to 6 months as a transitional accommodation, and we charge them $130 a week. Downstairs we charge $10 a night. I'd really like to get into a position where we don't have to charge a rent for our building and our services, but unfortunately at the moment that's our largest stream of revenue, and that's what keeping the doors open.
That's the acting night shelter manager, Tyler Dunkel. He says Wellington is experiencing a massive influx of homeless people due to the housing bubble, which is squeezing out the vulnerable. Long-serving colleagues don't remember the shelter being so busy in summer, with both its shared dormitory and hostel for longer-term clients running at 90% capacity.
What it tells me, if I'm experiencing a full house in the summer, I'm really going to be chocker in the winter time.
it's definitely a concern.
The spike in demand has coincided with an extremely turbulent period for the shelter and its board. Mr Dunkel is the third manager since August, and its chairman, John Kennedy-Good, is also the third to hold that position in the last year. Mr Kennedy-Good, who has been making the case to Wellington City Council for a funding top-up, says without the extra $30,000, its money will dry up in April. Unfortunately, the Trust missed the cut-off date for applying for the Lotteries Board community grant.
There is no rational reason other than it was we dropped the ball. Simple as that. We missed the deadline, and we have now improved our internal procedures to make sure we don't miss any further deadlines.
Mr Kennedy-Smith says the night shelter was hit hard by the 2014 Employment Court ruling that night care workers should get at least minimum wage.
That cost us $100,000 in back pay, and we've never recovered from it. We need to raise, in addition to the grants that we currently receive, an extra $100,000 per year.
That represents a 25% increase on what the night shelter already gets from grants, including the $95,000 a year it gets from Wellington City Council. Councillor Paul Eagle, who chairs the Council's Community Sport and Recreation Committee, says he expects councillors will approve the funding top-up. But he says the Council is looking to see some major changes, including improvements to governance and management, and changes to the service to bring it into line with Wellington's long-term strategy to end homelessness.
They go into the night shelter at night, they come out at 7:30 in the morning and head down to the soup kitchen. That's not a good model. What we'd like to see, if we're going to invest ratepayers' money into this and top it up, then with that will come a much better service to actually resolve homelessness.
Tyler Dunkel and the night shelter's staff and trustees could not agree more, but Mr Dunkel warns it's not going to be cheap.
That $30,000 that we're experiencing, that's a subsistence level. That's just to keep the doors open. That's not to thrive. That is to make sure that we're still providing a roof over people's head. And what we're asking right now is to have people help us continue to stay, but not just to say we want to thrive.
Mr Dunkel says the night shelter would like to put people straight into their own homes with wraparound services to keep them there. The Council's Community Sport and Recreation Committee will meet on Wednesday to discuss the $30,000 top-up required. In Wellington for Checkpoint, Ruth Hill.
And we'll let you know what happens at that meeting on Wednesday. 27.5 minutes past 5. Hundreds of people have attended a funeral service at Oraki Marae for Dr. Ranginui Walker, who died on Monday, aged 83. Our Māori issues correspondent Mihi Narangi Forbes was there.
It was a beautiful occasion. There was a great number of people from the universities, from education institutions. Then there was his family, Deirdre's family, of course, Deirdre Walker, his wife, and then all of their extended family. They've got nine grandchildren, 14 great-grandchildren, and, of course, 3 children together. So it was a lovely feel. Look, the tangihanga has finished earlier this afternoon, and the family has taken Dr. Ranginui Walker for a private cremation, but we had been waiting to see what Te Whakatohea, his iwi, were going to do in terms of having a bit of a tautohe, which is a discussion over where he would end up, whether he would be cremated or whether he'd be taken back to Te Whakatohea. And it came last night, they said today. Te Kahotu Maxwell, which is his nephew, who's been very much part of the speeches here, said that late last night they had a good discussion between the Walker family and Te Whakatohea, and they tried one last time to say, come on Deirdre, let us take him home, but they didn't win that one. But what they have decided is the family had said that Te Whakatohea can take some of Dr. Ranginui Walker's ashes home so that part of him can go home. And the Kahotu Maxwell said, that's okay, that's great, that's a fantastic solution. We'll take his brains and his heart and we'll leave the legs with you because there's heaps of Walkers at home.
Okay, me. Who wasn't there today? Who didn't turn up?
There was, so the Mayor, Len Brown, was here. There was Matidia Ture was asked, I think she was a former student of his, she was asked to speak this morning, so she did that. Members of the Green Party were here, Labour was here, the Leader of the Opposition was here. There was a pointed note from Te Kahotu Maxwell to the absence of Treaty Minister Chris Finlayson, who didn't come, and neither did anyone from the from the government, and that's because of Dr. Ranginui Walker's work with the Waitangi Tribunal. So he made a point of saying that he said that they were disappointed that the Waitangi Tribunal didn't send a delegation or the Treaty Minister didn't come to pay his respects, given the enormous contribution that Dr. Walker had made.
Mihi Forbes from the Tangi. We've got something very special from there to end the program with tonight in exactly an hour from now. Leilani standing by with the news headlines, Nona with business, but very quickly first, when I started at Radio New Zealand, there were community notice boards live on air. It was 1989. In the intervening years, they've been lost to the efficiencies of the internet. Now, for example, when Nainai Primary School postpones its annual fair, they email people and use Facebook, our loss. But tonight, the community notice board returns just once because someone's left 16 goats in Blackball, inland from Greymouth, where the Labour Party was born. Now, there are 330 people in Blackball, so 16 goats walking down the street is the per capita equivalent of 67,000 goats on the streets of downtown Auckland. Don't bother disputing that, it's a fact. So when the Grey District Council contacted us asking for assistance in tracking down the goats owners, we were in like a goat. Here's Murray Malloch, Animal Control Team Leader.
It's just an accumulation of people's pet goats that have gone wild. They've sort of all joined up and started breeding and they're sort of increased in numbers from 3 to 16, and the issue is that they wander the entire Blackball and also onto the road, which is causing a little bit of strife with some of the neighbours, their residents. They cause a problem with the road. They just sort of wander on the road up where they go, and then they're into somebody's garden and they strip it all out and they move on.
And so have the locals approached you, Murray, and said, we're sick to death of these goats?
Yeah, they have. Several of the people asked me to sort of, what can I do about it? And I said, well, first, I want to establish ownership. If no one, do it the legal way and then go about, if no one claims them, which I spoke to various people, and they said, yeah, we did have goats, Murray, but we lost them. And I presume it's this part of this mob. They're lovely-looking goats, but I haven't seen them, but everybody tells me they're lovely-looking goats. So I'm going to establish ownership. If nobody comes forward, then I go to the next process by advising that they will be, unfortunately, disposed of. And then you've got to make sure that where they're going to be taken out and whose property and where and how it's done, as long as it's done properly.
So have they been? So they've just been going through gardens and generally making a nuisance of themselves, have they?
Yeah, I went there Tuesday to see if I can find them, and I knew they had moved. They'd moved from the lower end of Blackball and disappeared into the bush again. They just come and go as they please.
Yeah, and so you're going to have to destroy them, Murray.
Unfortunately, that's why I've advertised first to say, hey, put your hands up, come and get your goats, go get your goats before I get them. So, if somebody wanted them, they can go and get them. But what I'm listening to now is that I'll just get the meat. I'll go and get the meat now, not as pets.
So, do you eat goat? Have you eaten it?
Oh, yeah, I have eaten goat. I have eaten goat. I'm actually a chicken man myself, what meat, yeah. But if they wanted to go and catch the goats and have them themselves, by all means.
You've been warned if they're your goats, go and get them before Murray does. The time is 27 minutes to 6. Coming up, the Crown finishes calling witnesses in the trial of Russell Tully. Is there a Republican crisis looming? That's a crisis in the Republican Party. And why a video of a young man dancing with his great-grandma has gone totally viral. But first, here is Leilani with the headlines.
A large shipment of methamphetamine has been found hidden inside marble tabletops sent from China. The police say the 40-kilogram find has a street value of $40 million. Customs and the police made the discovery after a joint operation in which they also seized $1 million in cash and a variety of luxury cars. 4 men have appeared in court on charges relating to the importation and supply of drugs and on conspiracy charges. The meat company AFCO says it's been made a scapegoat for an accident in which a cleaner was impaled in the head by a meat hook. Jason Matahiki was working at the company's Rangiuru works in August 2014 when a hook on a moving chain went through his head behind the left ear. WorkSafe has now successfully prosecuted AFCO in the Tauranga District Court. A senior police officer says young Africans should make a complaint after they accused officers in Auckland of racism and brutality against them. The allegations have been detailed in a study by an AUT researcher. The police deputy chief executive of Māori, Pacific and Ethnic Services, Wally Homaha, says those affected should make a complaint so the claims can be investigated. The Northland iwi leader Sonny Tau has had his case for shooting 5 endangered kereru transferred to Invercargill. The former chair of the country's largest iwi, Te Runanga a Iwi o Ngāpuhi, appeared briefly at the Auckland District Court today. His lawyer, John Munro, asked for the case to be sent back down south. The Education Council's disciplinary tribunal has lifted name suppression for 2 Gisborne teachers found guilty of serious misconduct over their relationship with a 13-year-old girl who later died. They are Samuel Back and Angela Meffin. The tribunal deregistered Mr. Back, who is 42, and censured his partner, Miss Meffin, aged 33, 2 weeks ago. And it's 5:36.
Thank you very much, Leilani. Let's turn to business news now with Nona, who is with us in the studio. Another record breaking down the New Zealand share market, Nona.
Yes, indeed, and that was in line really with what we've seen in Asia and in Australia. There's better tone to the market. Definitely things have improved with commodity prices, although that's still up in the air. We'll see what happens later tonight in New York when we get the some payroll data, which the market's waiting for. But in the meantime, Restaurant Brands, that's the company that brings us KFC in New Zealand, Pizza Hut, Starbucks, and Carl's Jr. chains.
All of them get National Heart Foundation ticks, don't they?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't possibly say. But they have been looking for expansion opportunities, and they have acquired or will acquire the largest franchise in New South Wales, and that includes some stores in Sydney and other parts of New South Wales, and that's the KFC brand. KFC is a very big brand for Restaurant Brands. It contributes 3/4 of their sales.
Holy moly.
Yeah, New Zealanders love their chicken.
They can have some of that goat from Blackpool as well.
Perhaps. I don't know if that's on the menu.
And I see they're paying $82 million for that. That's a heap of chicken,
Australian,
isn't it?
That's Australian dollars. But that's going to really drive up their bottom line. So we haven't heard them report yet. They're one of the companies that will be reporting middle of next month, their year end just last week. So we don't know exactly. He says that I spoke with their chief executive. He says that they're tracking to expectations. But once they've finished the acquisition of this particular chain, and it's not all of course, KFC in Australia, which gives them great opportunities for growth. That's one thing they're saying. But it's going to add quite a lot to their bottom line. They expect their underlying profit for 2017, so in a year from now, of about $70 million, which is quite a lot. It's a big step up. Sales of $500 million overall.
Wow.
That's all that fast food that they sell. So anyways, the market finished, as I said, on a record close. We were up more than 0.5% there by 37 points to 6,418. And the dollar is trading at 67.4 US cents and 91.6 Australian.
Thanks, Nona. Have a wonderful weekend. You're not working, are you?
No. On Sunday.
Okay. We'll have a wonderful Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Nona Peltier, our Auckland business reporter. 22 minutes, 21 and a bit minutes to 6. The Crown has finished calling its witnesses in the trial of Russell Tully, the man accused of murdering Ashburton Work and Income employees Peggy Noble and Lee Cleveland. The 49-year-old is also charged with the attempted murder of Kim Adams and Lindy Curtis. He also faces firearms charges and a charge of setting a trap the police say was intended to hurt people. Our reporter Sally Murphy has been covering the trial.
Well, the accused Russell Tully was present in court today for the whole proceedings. It's actually the first day in the 8-day trial that he's actually been here. For reasons that are suppressed, we can't say why he hasn't been in court. But of course, we know that 2 days last week he was ejected from the court by Justice Cameron Mander because he outburst. He yelled out over the court proceedings within minutes of them starting. So today he actually walked into the court flanked by 4 correction security guards who then manacled him pretty much to a chair where he sat through proceedings. He didn't do any speaking himself, but he did yawn loudly a couple of times.
And so, Sally, he's representing himself, but he's not speaking. So how on earth does that work? And he's often not even there. What's happening?
Well, he is being helped along by friends of the court called amicus. That's James Ratley and Phil Shammy, who are sort of helping him along in proceedings and letting him know what's happening when he's not there. He has not directed them to ask any questions so far, but today he did, because he was present in court. He asked Phil Shammy to cross-examine one of the police officers who was giving evidence today. He was talking in about the arrest. When Mr Tully was arrested, of course, the police found him hiding in a hedge. So Phil Shammy asked a few questions about that and clarified a few things.
OK, and Mr Tully's reaction during that process?
Well, it was quite hard to see him. Like I said, he was flanked by 4 security guards, but he seemed content with the answers because he didn't ask for any further examination.
Right. What evidence has stood out for you? You've sat through much of the trial so far. What has really stood out?
Well, I think the thing that stood out for me in particular was the evidence given by Lindy Curtis and Kim Adams, who Mr Tully is accused of attempting to murder. Of course, they were in the office when the Crown say the accused walked into the office and started shooting, especially Lindy Curtis. She was shot in her leg as she lay hiding under her desk. She was very brave and she gave a clear viewpoint of what happened that day. Also, Kim Adams, she was very emotional as she took the stand. She was actually shown CCTV footage of the shooting, which was only 61 seconds long. That's all it took. And when the picture came up on the screen next to her, she physically turned away. She found it very difficult and she couldn't even look at the footage.
Sally, how much longer is the trial expected to take?
Well, Justice Mander told the jury this afternoon that the Crown will close their case on Monday and he will sum up either Monday or Tuesday. He hasn't made that decision yet. And then the jury will retire and, of course, decide if Mr Tully is either guilty or not guilty of the charges he faces, including the 2 charges of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder and also some firearms charges.
Sally Murphy from the Christchurch High Court. Critics of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPPA, are calling on the government not to make the same mistake when free trade talks start with the European Union, which is keeping them secret. The Trade Minister, Todd McClay, hopes to start negotiations with New Zealand's 3rd largest trading partner next year. Our economics correspondent, Patrick O'Mara, reports.
While the Trans-Pacific Partnership is not yet done and dusted, the government already has its eye on the next prize, a free trade deal with the $20 trillion plus European Union. The fast-growing Asia-Pacific region has dominated the trade agenda, but the Professor of International Trade at Lincoln University, Crawford Faulkner, says Europe shouldn't be forgotten.
It's our 3rd largest export market. It's rich. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Even though there are diverse societies there, when you look at the globe, the EU is a massive trading entity.
The managing director at electric fence maker True Test, Greg Muir, agrees. About 15% of True Test's revenue is generated in Europe, and Mr Muir says firms ignore Europe at their peril.
Big populations, plenty of consumer discretionary income, sophisticated infrastructure through IT and software systems. And so Europe, to us, looks to be a good opportunity for decades to come.
While New Zealand itself is a small market, the executive director at the International Business Forum, Stephen Jacoby, says the country's unfettered access to Asia is an attractive selling point to the EU.
What's in it for them is the access that we have into markets in Asia that they don't have. And that's something they can access by partnering, investing, doing strategic alliances of different types. It's not our own market.
But negotiations will be contentious, mostly for the same reasons that held up the TPP. Despite a staunchly protectionist and powerful farming lobby, Fonterra's managing director of global ingredients, Kelvin Wickham, says Europe's high agricultural tariffs need to be eliminated.
We would hope so. I mean, clearly we were quite disappointed with the outcome at TPP. We felt that a much more comprehensive agreement could be reached, particularly if the US pushed harder on some of the more closed markets. So we would definitely be looking for a better outcome with the EU.
On the other side, Europe's powerful drug companies, like their American counterparts, are expected to demand longer protection periods. But while the talks may mirror the TPP in some ways, critics are demanding that secrecy is not one of them. The economist at the Council of Trade Unions, Bill Rosenberg, wants a more inclusive approach, saying the government cannot ignore civic society in the way it did during the TPP negotiations.
I would hope that Todd McClay has learnt something from that. What the outcry about both the process and the content of the TPPA has shown is that they will meet increasing resistance from New Zealanders to these kinds of agreements, particularly if they don't open up the process and they don't listen to people's very real concerns.
Dr. Rosenberg says a trade pact with the EU has the potential to be a better agreement, particularly if Labour works in partnership with business and government to boost growth and wages.
Our economics correspondent Patrick O'Mara with that report. Trade Minister Todd McClay says the TPP was the most consulted free trade agreement in New Zealand's history, and he intends to consult just as widely on a European free trade deal. You can hear more about New Zealand's trade relationship with Europe just after the 8 o'clock news on Sunday morning with Wallace Chapman. Meanwhile, the Parliamentary Committee considering public submissions on the TPP deal has rejected Labour's bid to get the deadline extended by a month so people had more time to consider it. However, the National Party MP who chairs the committee, Mark Mitchell, says the committee has already extended the original deadline and late submissions will be considered on a case-by-case basis. 13.5 minutes to 6. Lots of feedback coming in, lots of it about the goats. Seems to be very pro-goat. I'm a bit suspicious the goats themselves are writing some of it. We'll bring it to you later. Mitt Romney, the Republican Party's last presidential candidate, he lost to Obama in 2012, of course, has launched an almost unprecedented attack on Donald Trump. These men are in the same party. The Democrats are their enemy, not each other, theoretically. But here's what I know Mitt Romney said. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud. Now, as the Republican establishment almost implodes over the fact they don't like their own front-running candidate, the Democrat establishment is attempting to come to grips with the grassroots popularity of Bernie Sanders, a candidate regarded as too left-wing to be electable. This has been, wrote the venerable journalist Michael Tomasky in the New York Review of Books, the strangest and least predictable presidential campaign we've ever seen. But then Michael Tomasky explained why people shouldn't be surprised by that at all.
On the liberal side, what people are most upset about, when you peel away all the layers of the onion and get to the core of the thing, what liberals are really angry about in this country is income inequality, wage stagnation, economic unfairness, generally speaking. John, and so Bernie Sanders gives voice to that in a way that very few other Democrats could. And then on the conservative side, this is a little bit more controversial a statement, but I think it's clear that what really angers conservatives more than anything else, more than abortion, more than taxes, more than gay marriage, is immigration. Specifically illegal immigration, what they see is the infiltration into this country through its borders of people who aren't like them and who are going to change the country and lead to them having less power and it not being the country that those folks are used to it being, grew up with it being. And what did Trump do? That's exactly what Trump gave voice to. When he announced his candidacy and talked about Mexican rapists and so on, he pressed that hot button in a way that no other politician has ever pressed it. So both of these things, with the benefit of hindsight, very foreseeable.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? And it also means, if we go through in your the dangerous election article for the New York Review of Books, that Trump simply can't go too far. You say this after his attack on President Bush. People thought maybe he's finally gone too far, but that's been the general thinking on Trump many times, and it's always been wrong. If that's the constituency you're appealing to, and if that's how you're doing it, you simply can't go too far, can you?
I don't think he can. There must be something, there must be some penalty zone that he can step into that will make people that will make people peel away from him. But we haven't found it so far. And I think the reason that we haven't found it is that Trump has said on illegal immigrants from south of the border, Mexico and elsewhere, Central America, and he has said with respect to Muslims, I want these people out of the country. And that's what his voters, that's what that conservative base wants to hear more than anything else. The amount of stuff about Donald Trump's personal life and the amount of and the number of unorthodox, heterodox positions that he's taken for someone seeking a Republican nomination are just staggering. You know, the 3 marriages, the bragging about the women, and just, you know, the mere fact that he lives in a glamorous apartment at 5th Avenue and 57th Street, you know, which, you know, if you're a good Republican candidate, you're supposed to live in, you know, I don't know, in Texas someplace. You know, just all this stuff gets overlooked, and it gets overlooked because he is saying what they want to hear, I think, on these core issues.
And yet that Republican establishment, the people you would find in Texas, as you said, can't stand him. And you quote the National Review, that National Review editorial, which describes his populism as heedless and crude as the Donald himself. Yeah. Well, he's...
the National Review is for those listening who don't know, is an important conservative opinion journal, started in the mid-1950s by William Buckley, a very famous conservative intellectual, and they've supported every Republican. For better, they loved some, like Ronald Reagan, and they weren't so crazy about some, like George Bush Sr., but they've supported them all, and they're bound to support them all. It's their job. It's what their readers expect. It's what the whole political culture expects. But they came out with this issue in mid-January that said against Trump, and they wrote this thundering editorial, and they got 20-something other people, fairly prominent people, to write pieces saying we cannot brook this, we cannot have this. This is a real existential crisis in the Republican Party.
It's Michael Tomasky, one of the, well, there's many fine journalists in the States, but he's certainly one of them. You can read his article in the New York Review of Books, which is a fantastic magazine or newspaper. Right, next Thursday marks 5 years since a magnitude 9 earthquake struck Japan, triggering a tsunami and killing almost 16,000 people. In Fukushima, residents have begun returning, but the number of people working on decontamination still outnumbers the residents. This report from Reuters.
Tokuo Hayakawa, a 76-year-old Buddhist priest, flips through old photos. In one, he's wearing protective clothing. He lives in Naraha, a town just 20 kilometers from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear station that suffered a triple meltdown during the earthquake and tsunami in 2011. He's one of just 440 people who've returned since the evacuation order was lifted, and says his return marks the beginning of an end. It became a place where people couldn't live safely, he said. I knew when I returned I'd see the end of this city. Black garbage bags filled with radioactive dirt and debris line the horizon, a constant reminder of the ongoing cleanup. There are more people here hired to help with the decontamination than there are residents. Just 6% of the town's population have come back. A local politician says what many see as obvious, the foundation of the town is the residents. Around 10% of the evacuees still live in temporary housing across the prefecture, but many others have settled outside their hometowns and have begun new lives.
That report from Reuters. Sometimes you just put things on the radio because they are totally magic. This is an example of it. A video of a young man dancing with his great-grandmother has gone viral after being shared almost 7,000 times on Facebook. Jared Stoneman filming himself dancing with his 93-year-old nanny, Katie. He then posted it online, tagging in just a few close family members. I spoke earlier to Jared and Katie via Skype video from the Kapiti Coast after she'd woken up from a nap, and Jared explained how the video came about.
It was just the morning. She gets up at 9:30. We have carers that come in and get her ready for the day. But yeah, I got in there early, just give her a morning drink. And yeah, I asked her for a dance, and she said yes.
And who filmed it? Who was filming you?
I just put it on record and put it on the windowsill, and yeah, I just filmed it myself. And we walked over.
She looks so happy when you're dancing together. She just looks like she's flying.
Yeah, that's her. Just a normal day.
It's beautiful. And so, what have you made of the response to it? People just love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely blown away by it. I never expected that. Like, I tagged about 4 or 5 people in it, just close family members, just to share with them that, you know, the special moment. And you know, I just couldn't believe my phone's been going off non-stop. I've just had messages all from across the whole world telling me that I've made them cry in a good way, and yeah, brought back good memories for them, and just humbled by the response.
What do you think it's
Nanny's
about,
not too
Jared?
fast.
What do you think? Do you think actually it's just a celebration of kindness, of something simple and lovely and decent?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I just think people take for granted the small things, and that when you see them in like a genuine time and place like that, you know, it's just. I think there's nothing fake about that. People could see with their own emotion that, you know, that there was just nothing but love there, and yeah.
And joy, love and joy.
Love and joy, yep.
Yeah. Do you care for your grand, Jared? Do you look after her?
Yeah, so I'm now her full-time carer. I've been doing that for about a year. Before that, because she's my great-grandmother. Yeah. She's great, all right. Yeah, so so my grandmother used to care for her, but yeah, she's got emphysema, so yeah, she's unable to do it now, being getting out of breath quite easy. So yeah, I stepped up, and yeah, so I'm her full-time carer. We have a lot of fun.
And do you get any help?
Yep. So we get a lot of help. She's toileted and she's showered and stuff, so she has a bit of discretion, like privacy, you know. And we've got plenty of support. My mum helps. Everyone helps. It's just but I'm her favourite.
Well,
no, she won't admit it. She doesn't have favourites, but yeah.
I could see why you'd be her favourite when you dance with her like that. Do you know what? I think also there's something deeper than this going on here. And this is, you know, people are maybe reflecting on how we care for our own elderly relatives. You know, when was the last time we expressed that kind of love for our own grandmother or great-grandmother or parents or whatever? When was the last time we made someone close to us feel that happy?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Too many times people take that elderly for granted, and then just like that, they are gone. And, you know, and then the memories, and like the memories are the only things you get to hold on to. So I just think making the most of it when it's there. People just don't do that, and then, you know, until it's too late. So I'm just lucky that I get to spend time with her. So when the time comes, I don't have any regrets that, you know, I got to spend as much time with her and have great memories that I get to have, which I'll cherish forever.
How old is she, your great-grandma?
She's 93.
Still dancing at 93, Jared. I'd like to be still dancing at 93.
Oh, wouldn't we all?
Jared Stoneman, if you were listening to that interview, Katie, his great-granny, who was 93, was sitting beside him, joining in her own way. If you're on the radio and you get the opportunity to look at that video, it's on our internet page. It's truly magic. From the Kapiti Coast, those two. Lots of feedback. John, goat is the most eaten meat in the world, says Peter from Christchurch. I didn't know that, Peter. Can't help re-goats in Blackpool, but my grandfather's goats went bush up the Omotomotu Valley about 30 years ago, and the descendants are probably up in the hills near there somewhere, says Ed in Christchurch. Blackpool might be a great place to open a curry restaurant, says Ken Halliday. Yes, I've eaten curried goat. It's actually very good. Maybe a reminder to listeners and local goat eaters in Blackpool and surrounds about the discharge of firearms in urban area rules. Thank you for all your feedback. Quite a few people campaigning to have the goats protected and preserved. I don't think there's a chance of that. Just quietly haven't spoken to the Grey District Council. If you don't collect those goats within the next week, kaboom. Kia ora everyone, you are with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Thank you for being with us. Coming up in the next 30 minutes as we end our week, what a new poll says about our chances of getting a new flag. Samoans go to the polls in their general election. And Matt Chatterton joins us live in the studio, in fact actually live from a sold-out venue, the Breakers Perth Wildcats game. We're also going to preview the weekend Super 15 games. All of that and more coming up. But first, here's Leilani Mamoisia with RNZ News.
Kia ora, good evening. Methamphetamine with a street value the police put at $40 million plus cash and luxury cars have been seized in a massive drug bust in Auckland. Customs intercepted a shipment of tea tray tables sent from China and found about 40 kilograms of the drug hidden inside the marble tops. 4 men have appeared in court on charges related to the importation of methamphetamine and its supply, as well as conspiracy. Customs Investigation Manager Maurice O'Brien told Checkpoint their arrest is great news.
Because not only do you want the goods, obviously, you want those involved, which sort of dismantles or disrupts the syndicate. Not only that, we also located an additional 1 kg, over $1 million in cash, as well as significant assets.
Maurice O'Brien of Customs. The luxury cars seized include a Ferrari and a Lamborghini. A fruit and vegetable processing company has been fined almost $200,000 after workplace accidents in which 3 staff members lost their fingers. Prepared Produce Limited was fined for 6 offences and ordered to pay $57,000 in reparation to the victims. In the first incident in July 2013, a worker had his right middle finger and the tip of another finger cut off. The other 2 incidents occurred in November 2014. A worker had to have 3 fingers partially amputated and an employee had 2 fingers cut off. A Manukau District Court judge found an inadequately guarded belt slicer posed an obvious risk to employees, and action should have been taken after the first incident. The Crown has finished calling its witnesses in Russell Tully's murder trial. The 49-year-old is charged with killing Peggy Noble and Lee Cleveland in the attempted murder of 2 of their colleagues at the Ashburton Work and Income Office in September 2014. Sally Murphy reports.
If it is happening, come to us and lay the complaint so we can identify the source of those incidents, and we would like to know ourselves.
That wasn't Sally Murphy, but we will perhaps get that for you later on. The Finance Minister says the latest financial results are a reflection of the government's careful economic management. The government's books recorded a $934 million surplus before investment gains and losses in the 7 months to the end of January. Here's our political editor, Jane Patterson.
The surplus was $724 million higher than forecast, mainly due to a higher than expected tax take and lower Crown expenses. Tax revenue from GST and income tax was $200 million more than forecast, and the main reason the surplus was higher than initially estimated. The Finance Minister Bill English says the higher surplus reflects ongoing careful financial management, but also shows the volatility in the monthly accounts. He says the government is not reading too much into these latest financial statements and will continue to keep a tight lid on spending. From Parliament, Jane Patterson.
The Republican presidential hopefuls Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio today teamed up in a desperate attempt to knock down Donald Trump in a chaotic and unruly debate. They attacked Mr. Trump for donating to Hillary Clinton, for his electability, for his temperament, for hiring illegal immigrants and for manufacturing his company's clothing overseas. Mr. Trump brushed aside the attacks on his records and character, but saw an earlier slight by Mr. Rubio about the size of his hands as an attack on his manhood.
Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem.
Donald Trump. The billionaire was rocked later by Fox News moderators who offered up the most aggressive challenge of any debate host to date, highlighting his shifting positions on Afghanistan, Iraq and Syrian refugees. And the Crown has finished calling its witnesses in Russell Tully's murder trial. The 49-year-old is charged with killing Peggy Noble and Lee Cleveland in the attempted murder of two of their colleagues at the Ashburton Work and Income Office in September 2014. Sally Murphy reports.
The Crown called the last of about 70 witnesses today, the 8th day of the trial in the High Court in Christchurch. Russell Tully was present for the proceedings after being absent for most of the trial. The jury has heard from witnesses in the Work and Income Office, the police officers involved in the investigation and medical staff. The Crown and the two friends of the court who are assisting Mr Tully will give their closing addresses on Monday. This is Sally Murphy.
To sport, and the Breakers basketballers will either keep alive their NBL title defence or watch it crash and burn in Game 2 of their Grand Final series against the Perth Wildcats in Auckland tonight. The hosts trail 1-0 in the best-of-3 series and must win to force a deciding game in Perth. The Blues coach Tana Umanga continues his quest to create depth and instill a team over the individual mentality within his squad, making 6 changes for tonight's Super Rugby clash with the Crusaders in Christchurch. Assistant coach Alistair Rogers says the former All Black captain is intent on changing the culture and competitiveness of the former Super Rugby powerhouse.
This competition is tough, and we're going to need that squad. So it's not about anything other than building depth. That's one of the things that we are growing in this group. It's about the team, and obviously individuals will be disappointed, but it is about growing depth, and it's about the team.
The match kicks off at 7:30. Meanwhile, fullback Nehemiah Scudder has been ruled out of the Hurricanes' clash with the Highlanders in Dunedin tomorrow night due to a leg injury. Tom Walsh has beaten rival Jack O'Gill to defend his national shot put title in Dunedin, breaking his own New Zealand resident record in the process. And that's the news.
Tomorrow morning, 2 musicians who have turned adversity into life-affirming work. American singer-songwriter John Grant was brought up to believe that Jesus hates faggots. It's the title of one of his songs. That was bad news for him. And Jaron blind boy Paxton lost his sight as a teenager and, of course, plays the blues. That and more tomorrow morning from 8 on RNZ National.
And the Met Service weather to midnight tomorrow, Northland and Auckland. A shower or two in the east tomorrow afternoon. Coromandel Peninsula and Bay of Plenty mostly fine. Isolated showers inland this afternoon and evening. From Waikato to Wellington, including Taihape and Taupo, fine apart from areas of morning and evening cloud. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, Wairarapa, also Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, fine with high cloud at times over the South Island. Bulla is cloudy at times, mainly morning and night. In Westland, clouds turning to rain south of the glaciers tonight. Fiordland, there's thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. Otago and Southland, scattered rain for a time tomorrow. In the Chatham Islands, it's cloudy tonight and sunny breaks tomorrow. And it's almost 6:09.
Thank you very much indeed, Leila.
Thanks.
Have a fantastic weekend.
You too, John.
Thank you, I shall. Another opinion poll has shed doubt on the chances of a new flag for New Zealand. Voting's now underway in the referendum, with people choosing either to keep the current flag or replace it with Carl Lockwood's blue and black fern design. The research firm UMR has just released its latest poll of 750 people. Its executive director, Stephen Mills, says 59% of those polled want to keep the flag and 32% want a new one. 59-32. He says a change looks unlikely.
I mean, it's still possible, I guess, if there was a campaign which sort of caught people, got the right messages out. But yeah, no, it does seem unlikely. It's been a very consistent message, not just from UMR research tracking polls. We've done about 4 now, which have shown this 2/3, 1/3 split. But most other media polls as well. You know, the swing group, if there is one, and I don't think they're that reachable, but you know, if the ones who could change their mind are those who do say they want a change of flag in principle but don't like that design. And as in that report that you've got, it's very clear that that group's very anti-key as well, because they're mainly Labour and Green voters and younger voters.
Stephen Mills says the survey also revealed further political splits. He says most of those who want a new flag are national voters, but they too are split.
If you'd started from the beginning on this, you'd have thought that, you know, National Party voters would have been the least likely to support it, and Labour and Green voters are most likely to support, you know, changing the flag. But that's been far from the case, and consistently so. National voters split 45% each way on this, so 45 for retention and 45 for changing. And amongst the other party groups, have to be a bit cautious with the smaller parties, but Labour, only 19% of Labour voters voting for changing the flag, 73% for retention. Greens, 28% for change, 60% for retention, and New Zealand First, that's a bit more expected, 24% for change and 73% for retention.
Stephen Mills of UMR Research. Voting closes on March 24th. The Prime Minister John Key told us yesterday if a new flag is chosen, it will be flown by New Zealand athletes at the Rio Olympics in August. Just gone 6 on Checkpoint. Vote counting is underway in Samoa, which has held its general election today, while the ruling Human Rights Protection Party are expected to remain in power. Today's election was the first to take place where 5 of the 49 seats are guaranteed to female candidates, reserved for them. Our correspondent in Samoa, Aotangawaya Tipi Aotangawaya, is at the electoral office and joins us now. Talofa lava, Aotangawaya. How's it going?
Well, everything is smoothly running. All the polling booths have been closed. We're still waiting for some of the counts at some of the polling booths here around the town area and also in Sabine. But most of the polling booths results have come in. But so far, we only have 3 constituencies with the full results of the election today, which saw that one former MP of the opposition party, the Kultua Samoa Party, has been defeated. And one of the ruling party is RDP young candidate, and it's going to be a new MP for the ruling party after Masanga Rico from the Nalofi number 3 constituency has won with 836.
Tipi, sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Forgive me. The line is just really dodgy. We want to hear this, and we want to hear about the guaranteed seats for women, and we want to hear about Prime Minister Tui Laepa, who seems incapable of ever being pushed out of that job. So we're going to give you a call back. So hang up, and we'll call back and try and re-establish contact. In the meantime, a piece of plane debris that washed up on the beach in Mozambique will be analysed in Australia to determine if it is, as people are speculating, from the missing Malaysian airliner MH370. Incredible that this wreckage still hasn't been found. This report from Reuters.
Malaysian officials are investigating whether debris washed up on the shores of Mozambique belongs to the missing MH370 Malaysian Airlines plane that disappeared March 8th in 2014.
No, but what's after
Malaysian Transportation Minister Liao Tiong Lai.
And we have studied the drifting pattern. The expert actually studied it and actually follow the drifting pattern. And it actually landed in Mozambique beach. It's actually also following that pattern. But I can't confirm anything now because we need to verify their debris.
Flight MH370 disappeared with 239 people on board on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. A months-long exhaustive search for the plane came up empty. Australia's transportation chief, Darren Chester, echoed what the Malaysian transport minister said and spoke to the uncertainty that remains.
Through our collective efforts, we hope to locate the aircraft and give some comfort to the family and friends of those on board and help us understand what happened to flight MH370. Regrettably, the aircraft may never be found and we may never know what happened.
The metre-long piece of debris will now be sent to Australia, where Australian and Malaysian officials will examine it.
That report from Reuters, we're just trying to get a better phone line sorted out with Samoa to find out what's happening in the general election there, our near and dear neighbours. But first, single sculler Mahi Drysdale and the men's pair, Hamish and Eric Murray, will head New Zealand's biggest ever rowing team at the Rio Olympics in August. The 31-strong team will compete in 9 classes and for the first time feature a women's 8 and a men's lightweight 4. Drysdale told our sports editor, Stephen Hewson, the selection makes Rio feel a lot closer and comes as a relief.
Just because you know that that's a stepping stone for you to go on and achieve your goals. One of those things that you have to tick off. And okay, this year I wasn't challenged, but you never take that for granted. We've got a lot of very talented athletes in this program, and over summer I was beaten in the single by both Robbie and John. So certainly you've got to be in good shape, but it's something that you're always looking ahead to Rio, but you never take your spot for granted in this program.
Yeah, the competition's tight. Mahi Drysdale's coach, Dick Tonks, was given the boot, of course, by Radio New Zealand, by Rowing New Zealand. He never worked for us in December because he refused to stop coaching a Chinese crew on the side. They've since resolved that row, allowing Tonks to continue coaching Drysdale. They're a formidable combination. Drysdale says he's pleased with that and says it wasn't awkward getting back into it.
Not at all. It was quite scary actually. Just sort of showing up the first day, there's a little bit of how's this going to play out? And we literally rode up, both the women's double and I, and it was Dick's usual into the megaphone. All right, 20k, and you're sort of like, all right, it's back to normal, and off you go. So there wasn't any readjusting at all. I think he just really started off where we'd left off. It's been great since.
Drysdale says there is phenomenal talent amongst the New Zealand team.
Out of the team that's already qualified, we got 9 boats, and 7 of those boats medalled at the World Champs last year. So, it's a very, very exciting time to be involved in the sport. I've been here since Athens, and we had 11 athletes, and we've now got 32 confirmed, and we're sending another 5 boats to go and try to qualify. So it's incredibly exciting times, and being here for the whole time, I'm very, very proud of all the youngsters, and just seeing how the standards keep going, and I'm very confident that this team is going to perform incredibly well in Rio.
Olympic rower Mahi Drysdale, team of 31, incredible, biggest ever rowing team to go to the Olympics, and as he said, boy, they all are formidably good. The team could get bigger yet too. Another 15 rowers have been selected to compete at the final qualification regatta in Switzerland in May, where they will compete for a spot in the Olympic squad. What strength on the water our rowing team gives us. Staying with sport while we try and sort the line to Samoa out. The Breakers take on the Perth Wildcats in a must-win match tonight at the North Shore Events Centre over the bridge in Auckland. It's game 2 of the final series, and after losing the first one in Perth, it's showtime for the New Zealand basketballers. Sports reporter Matt Chatterton is inside the sold-out North Shore Events Centre. Hi Matt, what's the vibe?
Well, it's just starting to pick up now, John, to be honest. The Breakers have been out here for a while doing a few bits and pieces, warming up. You might be able to see Paul Hennard there behind me. There. A few of the other boys behind training. The Breakers have actually been here a bit longer than the Wildcats, to be honest. They've been practicing a good hour beforehand. So I think they're really enthused and really looking forward to getting this game underway.
Now, Matt, for people who are watching, it's empty. The stands are empty, but this is a sellout, isn't it? And it gets noisy there, doesn't it?
It sure does, yeah. They're already practicing all their moves for the night with the dancers and the music out the back. And this is like quite an enclosed stadium, so a lot of noise gets heard here at NCEC, or North Shore Events Centre. And I imagine the Breakers will really be trying to feed off that energy that the crowd will be giving them tonight.
Matt, the Breakers are hard to beat at home, but gosh, this Perth team is good. Do you dare to make a pick on, I mean, the Breakers have to win or they're out?
They do indeed. They do have to win. I would say it's going to be a close match, but the Breakers haven't been beaten by Perth in New Zealand this year, so that is one thing that is going in their favour. And obviously that match over in Perth the other night, it was 82-76, so it was a close, tight game. And I imagine we're going to see similar scenes again here tonight on the North Shore.
It's going to be a fantastic game. Matt, let's preview the Super Rugby weekend. Crusaders Blues tonight, Canes Highlanders tomorrow, Chiefs playing South Africa's Lions also later tomorrow. That Crusaders Blues is going to be a cracker in about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, it sort of takes me back a wee bit, you know, to back when the Blues and the Crusaders were the two informed teams in sort of the early to mid 2000s. I mean, it's sort of been a little less of a competition in the last few years since the Blues haven't been as competitive, but now that they've got Tana Umaga and they had that great win against the Highlanders last weekend, I imagine they'll put up more of a fight in Christchurch tonight. Then, of course, tomorrow we've got a repeat of the final between the Highlanders and the Hurricanes. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I mean, last year the Highlanders won the final, so I mean, and it's down in Dunedin, so it could possibly go that way. But I wouldn't want to tempt fate there. I'm sorry, John. I know you're a Hurricanes fan. Apologies,
oh no, that's well. Look, we
and
know.
then, of
Well,
course,
made the best team win.
The Chiefs. Yeah, and then there's the Chiefs game as well. They are playing the Lions here back in Hamilton. The Lions obviously beat the Sunwolves last week in Japan, but it was the Sunwolves' first game. And the Chiefs obviously beat the Crusaders last weekend. So I am going to put my money on the Chiefs taking out that game tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I would say that you'd get bugger all back on that bet, Matt. I think that's a very safe way of putting $1 down. Just before we go, Warriors launching their season in the NRL Rugby League. If you're not a big sports follower, against the West Tigers in Sydney tomorrow night.
Yes, that is true. I imagine that will be quite an exciting game now that we're going to see the likes of Isaac Luke and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck in action for the Warriors. And then, of course, we've also got the return of Sean Johnson, who's back after 6 months out with a broken ankle. So it will be good to see. I'm sure it'll be another close match.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Matt Chatterton, enjoy the Breakers game. And go the Breakers. Let's go back to Samoa. Aotearoa Tipi Aotearoa is there where they are now counting votes in the general election. Tipi, it's lovely to have you back. I hope the phone line is a bit better. Samoa is going to continue having Prime Minister Tui Laepa as the man in charge, isn't he? There is no chance whatsoever that he will not be Prime Minister after today.
Well, you know, looking at the results of the polls today, the preliminary results, it's only 3 constituencies so far with the full results of each poll, which sees, one of the opposition party former MP is being defeated by a new HRPP ruling party candidate. And also a new HRPP candidate has won from the constituency of Sapata East. Looking at the overall of the results so far coming in, it looks like that 2 to 3 cabinet ministers is going to lose their seats.
What about, Tipi, the guaranteed seats for women? This is new. 5 seats absolutely reserved for women. What kind of interest was there in running for those seats?
Well, the interest here, it's the first time ever in a general election, we have 24 women candidates competing or contesting. And so far in the result, as you know, at the closing of the nomination, it was one of the former MP and the caretaker Minister of Justice, Fiamena Mataafa, is now retaking that seat from the Lotofanga constituency. But at the results so far of the polls, I can see that 2 of the women candidates have topped the polls in most of the polling booths in their constituency. So I am guessing that 3 MPs will be women MPs will be elected from the result of the polls today.
Aotearoa Tipi Aotearoa, thank you so much. Crossing live from Samoa. So the Human Rights Protection Party look set to hold on to their really absolute stranglehold on power in Samoa, meaning that Prime Minister Tui Laepa will remain in the job. Often what happens is people stand against him in opposition and then end up in his party anyway. His management of the political system in Samoa is quite extraordinary. We're going to end the week on a couple of notes celebrating children in New Zealand, really. A beautiful close from Ranganui Walker's tangi coming up. But first, a little girl in Auckland turned 5 over the Christmas holiday, but had a party last weekend. Nothing necessarily special there. But instead of gifts, Sophia got her friends to bring presents for dogs at a South Auckland animal shelter. They brought food, dog beds and toys. This was so selfless by a 5-year-old that we asked Sophia, did Sophia come to you and say she wanted to do this? Was this her suggestion?
No, it was my suggestion to Sophia. She's the last of our 4 to turn 5, and they don't need anything. And we had a huge party with lots of people coming, so I just thought it would be a good way to give back.
And so, even though it was Mum's suggestion, you've still got to be a pretty unusual child to say, hey, no, I'm happy for dogs to have my presents, rather than, no, I want stuff for myself.
She had a typical 5-year-old response.
You love dogs? You're like a politician, Sophie. You're getting a bit of media training there. So, Chantel, what was this about? Just making Sophia understand that enough is enough, and actually there are creatures who need help.
Yeah, I'm 4 months away from finishing my social work degree, and we're advocating for people a lot, and I'm trying to teach my children to advocate for needs in their community. So we love dogs. We have 2 Shih Tzus, and it was just a great chance to sort of, just show her how we can do that.
And how actually you can make a difference. I mean, you've got quite a lot of booty there, haven't you?
She got a good haul.
Sophia and her mum. Well, that almost ends our program for Friday the 4th of March 2016, the day Dr. Ranganui Walker was farewelled by his family and friends before his body was taken from the marae up there at Oraki for private cremation. Our cameraman, Alexander Robertson, was there, and as he was packing up to leave, we were all watching it via live view, and we noticed a school group getting ready to perform. They were from Napuna or Waiorea, the Māori immersion unit at Western Springs College near Grey Lynn. We end tonight with their waiata, a celebration of a man and of the people and culture he devoted his life to speaking on behalf of. Beautiful. Ngā puna o Waiorea. The Māori immersion units at Western Springs College, right beside Greylin in the zoo there, singing a beautiful waiata in honour of Dr. Ranginui Walker and ending Checkpoint for the week. We should also say that the cameraman who shot that, Alexander Robertson, is off to make his fortune in New York. Alexander, it's been a pleasure working with you. And on behalf of everyone on the Checkpoint team, we wish you and Gemma really, really well. Have a wonderful weekend.
Listening to RNZ National, where it's 6:30. Welcome to World Watch PM. I'm Elizabeth Brown. Tonight, North Korea ups the ante, would-be migrants told don't come to Europe, and a special team of Olympians. Those stories and more in World Watch PM. North Korea is upping the ante in terms of its defiance against unprecedented United Nations sanctions aimed at trying to curb its nuclear program. It fired 6 short-range missiles into the Sea of Japan, and now, according to the state-controlled Korean Central News Agency, the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered nuclear weapons to be ready